All right, welcome. So we are back with Jannine, and I'm super excited for this conversation. We're going to be talking pleasure, manifestation, and really actually how do we use sex magic and pleasure to really call in what we desire. Both Janine and I, we were just talking about our journeys with manifestation, our experiences, and sometimes with that journey of manifestation and that process, it can kind of feel like you're banging your head against a wall, and it's like, why is this not happening? Why is it not coming to fruition? And it can be really frustrating. And what I really love about with the Sxx Magick and bringing pleasure into the journey, it's really shifting from necessarily like super focused on the goal or like attaching to the outcome. It brings you more into your body, more into your pleasure, and more into actually like the enjoyment of that process. And yeah, just what was coming to my mind just prior to this episode was like that kind of feeling like we need to be somewhere that we're not, and feeling like we need to force the process of manifestation. Like even when we think about self pleasure and or pleasure or sex, there's like this idea of like I have to get to orgasm, or I've got to get my partner to orgasm, and there's like this goal and this pressure to get somewhere where we're not. And there's like this, I notice there's like a heaviness and a force and like a contraction, rather than being in the purity of the moment, the enjoyment of the moment, and really deeply embodied in that pleasure. So I'm super excited to dive into this. Jannine's also going to be joining us in the Embodied membership, and sharing a really amazing workshop about like really going deeper with Sxx Magick. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So welcome, Jannine.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be back and to dig into one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience or your journey with manifestation, how that's unfolded.
Absolutely. I will say, I guess my first ever experience with the law of attraction is my mom getting really into it back when The Secret came out. And it was a part of Oprah's book club. And then it was this whole big thing. And so I kind of saw little parts of it. I was curious about it, but didn't go full in. And I've always been a goal person. I've always had different things I'm working on, constantly doing my goals, my planners, and all those sorts of things. But it didn't really become like this bigger manifestation thing for me until I was in my 20s. And I hit a point where I felt like I was like doing all the right things. Like I had the vision boards, I had the reminders like at my mirror. I remember having this like sales goal, like right by my makeup where I would get ready, do the affirmations, write down the goals. Like I felt like I was doing all the things and it wasn't happening. And it was so frustrating. And like my now husband, this is in the very early stages of us dating, like 10 years ago, he was not into it at all. He's much more open at this point. But like he was so skeptical and I'm believing so much like this is gonna work and it's not happening. And I'm like feeling like a failure in some sort of ways. And like I know in my soul that like this stuff works, but yet it's not working. And it's so frustrating. And it was just such a struggle for quite a while, but I kept my faith, kept at it, kept setting the goals and working towards things. And it wasn't until, I guess, maybe two-ish or so in the past two-ish years, it was really our Vita program that changed things for me. I would say things started to fall into place over the years. But it was through learning Sxx Magick and embodied manifestation that really made that difference. And what shifted for me is what you touched on in the beginning is like I was trying so hard. Like I was pushing for it and trying, and there's so much pressure when you are doing that. It's like this big pressure cooker, like you're trying so hard to make these things work. And that is not flow. That is not ease. That is not attraction. Like, that is not the vibe. And so, what I really got into with embodied manifestation and Sxx Magick is enjoying the journey, enjoying the process, and really acting as if you already have it. And like that might sound simple enough, like act as if you already have it. But what it comes down to for me is making the decisions I would make as if I already had the thing. So instead of like desperation or trying, it's okay, I'm someone who already has that. So I'm going to hold myself to a certain standard and I'm going to make these certain choices that align with that standard. And there was just a bit of a shift for me. And I really wove it into a bit of a practice. So every day when I get ready or when I'm in the shower, I think about how I want to present myself for the day. Who am I becoming for the day? What do I have going on? How do I want to dress to support that? How am I going to carry my morning through with my kids? What kind of decisions am I going to make when I going to fit in movement or eating things that make me feel good and all of these different things. And so they begin to stack on top of each other and really allowing you to step into that vibrational frequency that's attracting what you want. And then when I got into the actual Sxx Magick side of it, that was so wild, the different things that I have manifested through that. Like you can't see right now because, or maybe a little bit, like I've manifested a tattoo. Like I won this through a giveaway. Totally such a surprise. I have manifested sales coming through within like 3 or 4 hours of my practice for something was not selling at all, like manifested our relationship being a certain way. I almost manifested like a new house coming into our life a little bit too quickly. And we had to like pump the brakes and we are like, okay, we're not quite ready for this. Let's slow that down. But it's just this potent sexual creation energy that when you combine with all of that embodied manifestation, it's just this extra spark, this extra potency that really makes things go so quickly, I find. And perhaps part of that for me, where it was this like thing that clicked and everything just flowed, was because of the journey I've been on in the last 10 years, where I spent so much time working through those resistances, creating the foundation, going through our Vita program, really working on those unconscious blocks. So that way, when I was at that stage of that Sxx Magick, it just things just opened up and flooded right on in. So that is kind of my journey from seeing the secret to really using this as a tool almost in my daily life. Maybe not quite every day, but multiple times throughout the week, I will do some sort of like sexual energy embodiment, Sxx Magick practice, even if it's just for 5 minutes. And then here and there, one of like the longer, more ritual side of things.
Oh, amazing. I so resonate, and I'm glad you brought that piece in because I feel like that's something that's really missing from The Secret. It definitely is not something that I picked up on when I found The Secret in my early 20s. And that's working through the resistances and the unconscious blocks. I think that's something that doesn't get spoken about enough. It's like, just think and you will receive, or just feel the thing. But it's like a lot of the time there's like this spiritual bypassing and this positive thinking, this affirmation way of doing it, but we're not addressing like those blocks, so we're kind of just trying to ignore them, which is like more of a bypass, and we're like, why is the thing not happening? I'm curious, like I have a couple of questions just with what you shared of like, how does it kind of compare from like when those early days of doing like manifestation, like how did that feel in your body? How was that experience compared to now with more of like the Sxx Magick, and now that you've like moved through those blocks, like how does it feel like on that kind of embodied level?
Love this question. Hadn't actually taken a moment to reflect on this before, but such a difference. I feel like before, and again, I can just picture myself in our old bathroom, the place we had before this house, have my like drawers here with this sign there. And it was very much in my head. Like I was not in my body whatsoever at the time. Definitely like party girl tendencies, and just, yeah, not embodied at all. And it was so much in my head, like planning. This is my goal. This is the journey to get the goal. These are the steps I have to take, not that trust in the process, not the feeling grounded, where now, like, I can tell so easily if something is in alignment or not.
Mm.
It just takes checking in with myself, and I know the way my body responds to know if something's in alignment. I have so much of a deeper trust for the process and know that things are going to unfold the way that they should. And I will also say what I notice being really different is now when the shit starts to crumble or get stirred up. And now I know that this is a part of the process where generally to get to these next steps, something about this current step needs to get shaken up or broken down in one way or another because it's not working for where we want to go. And before, I would like freak out at that. Like, it's the end of the world. What do? I need to control this thing and like make it happen the way I want to make it happen. And now I am so much more grounded throughout that process and am able to be like, okay, what do I learn from this? Like, what's in this? And sure, I might have like the bouts of anxiety or like whatever it might be, the little bit of a breakdown, but I can get back to it so much quicker. And it doesn't happen to the degree that it used to before. I'll notice the tightness in my chest. I notice my body's responses, and now I know what to do about it. So it's like these little things come up, and then that trust and that deep inner knowing, and just, yeah, trusting the process and knowing it'll all unfold.
Yeah, there's quite a significant difference in like when you were sharing with like the secret and like you knew that this was like real, you knew that this was true, you knew that this was possible, but now like that knowing and that trust is like really deeply embodied. Like it's not just kind of a thought or like I know this should be working. Like why is it not working? Like you said, it was very in your head, but now there's like this deep like inner wisdom, like embodied wisdom that's able to more tap into the frequencies of receiving and attraction rather than like force and trying to control the process.
Absolutely. And even with the things I'm working toward, like, I think it was so much more of goals of the ego, of the different things I wanted to get to, where now it's so much more embodied. And even something as simple as that with the goals is so much different.
Yeah, because I notice when there's an embodiment, like when you've done that work to really become embodied, there's that knowing of what's a true desire and what's an ego desire. Like you can actually discern, like it feels very, very different. And I feel like I've especially doing Vita and doing a lot of the other work that I've done, like that discernment has become so strong. I'm like, oh, yep, I know that this is coming from, whether it's coming from ego, whether it's coming from, sometimes I've had goals that are coming from scarcity, or I'm coming from like, I need this to prove that I'm good enough or I'm successful. And a lot of these things were unconscious until they actually came into the light, into the consciousness. And I'm like, ah. I can now see and feel where that goal or quote unquote desire was coming from. It wasn't really a true heart's desire. What I feel now when it's like a true heart's desire is like this magnetic pull, this like often I get flashes, like I get an image flash in my mind of something that wants to birth through me. And I'm kind of like, oh, where did that come from? Like it wasn't me kind of sitting and thinking, what do I need to create in order to achieve the thing? And again, it's coming from that very like mind control space. It usually just like that channel opens up and it just flows through, and these ideas and these creations are able to birth through. And I can feel like the tingling in my heart. I feel like the excitement in my body rather than like overwhelming mental stimulation, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense and really brings me back to, I want to say like 3 or so years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, where I was really building my previous business. And it was, again, so much pushing. And I had a goal of certain money I wanted to make. And I knew I could do it, but didn't know how. And I had a business coach, and we would do like this big launch this certain way, and it wouldn't work. So pivot and do this. And I have no ill thoughts towards this particular coach. Like, she was great. And I didn't have the discernment. And so, what we got to over this part of working together for a few years is pivot, 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 all these different things, pushing, constant burnout cycles, working towards these goals. And I was chasing something that was no longer my idea, because if for each pivot, I was trying to control and be in my head and all of these things. It was so chaotic. And never once did I just like sit with myself. What feels right? And now it seems so simple, but that wasn't even a thought before.
Yeah.
And it caused like so much stress. Like, it was the early days with my kids. I was so overwhelmed, so burnt out in those constant cycles. And now, where it really comes from, like, how does this feel? It's all of these downloads just come in. Like, I have my notebooks like everywhere, all around me, and certain like note folders on my phone. And it's like these different ideas just come into me, come through me. And I just need to record them and then
Mm.
give myself the space to like sit with it and put the puzzle pieces together. And then it just kind of flows. Where again, before, I wouldn't give myself the space to just like
Yeah.
be with it and like do that. It would be just this like forcing, having to do the thing. And it just was such chaotic energy and so forceful, and very much that masculine go, 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 where now it's that feminine flow, where it has that ease, where yes, I have that discernment. There is some masculine energy with taking the action, but there's so much more flow and trust and just embodied wisdom throughout it.
Mm. That feels so nourishing, and that's actually what was coming through is like you created the spaciousness like prior, like when it's go 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 pivot 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 do now let's try this, now let's try that. There's no space for flow.
Mhm.
There's no space to receive that divine wisdom and those divine creations and those visions to flow through you, and the best way to actually like put into action. And what I find, like, the masculine energy and the feminine energy is so essential here. Like, one is not better than the other. I actually did a podcast recently on that, of like how we can often get into the shaming of like, oh, I'm too masculine, I've got to be more feminine, I've got to be more this, now I'm not being masculine enough, and now I've got to do that. And so it's like knowing that they're actually both essential pieces. It creates the
Mhm.
wholeness. So the masculine gets to create structure, gets to support the feminine and create safety for the feminine to flow. And then the masculine comes in when we want to go into that like action, but we want aligned action. We don't want to just be doing action for the sake of doing action and trying to do and
Mhm.
force. That's like when we kind of go into more like unhealthy masculine of like trying to control everything. And it's like when we really look into that, where are we coming from when we feel like I need to control everything, I need to do more, I need to do more, and I need to do more? It's like there's underlying feelings of I'm not enough, therefore I must
Mhm.
do more. And then when I do more and it doesn't work, it's like I'm doing the wrong thing. So now I've got to figure out what the right thing. And there's coming from this place of like, why isn't this working for me? Or I'm broken, or I've got to do this, I've got to control this, I can't trust. Sometimes we might be coming from scarcity and like need and desperation. So now we start to kind of go into that descent into like the underworld stuff, into the unconscious, and get really curious about where am I leading from with my manifestation? Like, what is really leading me here? Is it really like the heart's desire, or is it coming from that ego space, from that like that need or that desperation? And then actually sometimes with that, it's like when we look into when I need, it's like, what unmet need is inside. So maybe there's actually a childhood wounding here where there is a need that was not met, and now I'm trying to get it met in this way of like trying to force something because there's this unmet need inside. And so this is where it's really important to go into those wounds, those blocks, those resistances, and do the integrative work that actually supports you to become more embodied, to really be able to tune into your heart's desire and really surrender to the process. Like that's, I feel like a big piece here. It's like we can't, for me, we can't do manifestation. It's like a surrendering to manifestation. It's a co-creation with the universe. It's a co-creation with our muse, the where we're receiving these visions from. It's a co-creation and we're really the vessel. But sometimes when we're in that mind and in the ego, we're like, I'm the creator, I'm the doer, I'm the one that has to create this and manifest this, as if it's like a thing that we do rather than a thing that we receive and dance with and move with and co-create. And like coming back to Sxx Magick and pleasure practice, again, it's something we surrender to. We feel it, we explore, we play, we dance, we enjoy, we lean into resistances, we notice what arises, and it's really a dance for me. Yeah.
Yes. So it's I can feel you coming through with that. And what came up for me is that deep trust in yourself and in the process and knowing that it will all unfold comes from the inner child healing and the shadow work. And for me, and what I think is so common with the women I work with and talk to, is my validation came from me doing good. That's how I was seen with my parents. That's how I was loved, is when I got the straight A's and when I wasn't a problem. And so that carried over into that doing energy, is I needed to do good because this is how I'm loved. This is how I'm celebrated. If I do wrong, then I fail and I'll be punished and something's wrong with me. And this and that, and it goes so deep. And so when you can really face those pieces that are like so scared, so holding on to control and just don't want to feel like that failure, and that inner child within that is scared of repercussions even, and just really truly wants to be loved. And when you can move through that and provide that for yourself, that's where your inner knowing, where your inner strength comes from. That's where you're able to really build that sense of discernment and that sense of trust. And then from that is where you begin to have that flow and that intuition and that connection with yourself. But such a big piece of those resistances and removing those blocks comes from that shadow work, that inner child healing. And those are such important pieces to really shift from that doing and the ego and these different sorts of goals to being more embodied with it, and then being able to bring that playfulness and that sensuality and bringing in that sense of receiving into it, and just having, again, that embodied experience, that dance with the universe, with your energy. Yeah, it's a really beautiful journey to go through. And again, you go into the depths, into that crumbling, and then you come
Yeah.
out the other side.
Yeah, I love that, the dance with the universe, and that's really bringing in this, what's feeling like this playful, pleasurable, enjoyable energy. That doesn't mean the whole process is enjoyable. There can be some uncomfortable pieces, especially when we are meeting those resistances that are arising, because I feel like the manifestation process will also show you where maybe you're not in the frequency, or what might be blocking you from that, or like supporting you in becoming who who you need to become in order to receive what it is that you desire to receive. So I love that piece you shared at the beginning of when you're in the shower and you are stepping into who you desire to become for the day or show up for the day, and you're acting as that person or embodying that person in that moment. So you're doing the things that that person would do. I really loved that part, that practice that you shared. And the other thing I wanted to just bring awareness to is when we are in that, I guess, mode of doing and goal and forcing, there's often like a very rigid time frame of like it has to be achieved by a certain time. And even when we look at whether it's manifestation as well as pleasure, sex, self-pleasure practice, there can be the goal of orgasm or climax or getting to that finish point. And that can actually block us from the orgasm or block us from the manifestation really coming to fruition, is having that rigid time frame. It's not to say you shouldn't have any time frames, it's more just allowing it to be a little bit more fluid. And something that I heard some time ago now was actually the concept of staying power. Like if you get to that, let's say you set a goal for 7 days from now and you get to 7 days and it hasn't come to fruition, a lot of us will be like, oh, it didn't work. And we'll drop into that vibration of it didn't happen, and we go into story, we go into like, I guess, the descent, which is actually a potent part of the integrative journey required in order to move into the receiving of this desire you have in place. So it's actually still part of the journey. It's still beautiful of now I'm going to be seeing the stories I'm holding, the deeper beliefs that might be blocking me, the resistances, that's the stuff that starts to bubble up here. So really get curious about that. But also knowing that it's like, if it doesn't happen in 7 days, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's like, all right, really feeling into what's here for me, like, and getting curious about that process, but staying power of like really staying in the energy, trusting, being in faith, knowing that it's going to happen. Like, again, that comes to the embodied knowing. And really just sticking with it, continuing with your practices, knowing, yep, this is coming, this is my deepest desire, this is aligning for me, and really staying in that. Because a lot, like I noticed for me in those earlier stages, when it didn't happen on time, I was like, oh, it's just never going to happen. And I would just go into these really deep, dark spirals, often for like months before I kind of came back out and decided to try again, and then it wouldn't work. And then it actually created some really deep wounding for me, and where I felt like, oh, the universe doesn't like me as much, the universe doesn't have my back, the universe doesn't love me or care about me, I'm all alone, this is just never going to happen for me. And it created a really strong disconnect between me and universe, because I felt like, oh, the universe just doesn't have my back, I can't trust in that. And it created more distrust, which, yeah, that's some of the wounding that I had to move through in order to come to the ability to come into embodied manifestation and Sxx Magick.
Because it is full of so many ups and downs. And there's something, I have my little whiteboard right here beside me, and there's something that's written on it. And for me, my primary manifestations that I'm working on right now are my business. Like, I have the family life, the lifestyle, all of these things that I love. There is some physical movement and strength that I'm working on as well, but it's primarily my business. And so it says, show up for my business the way I show up for our marriage. And that was written down with exactly what you talked about in mind. In my marriage, when the going gets tough, I don't start like going through the spirals and wanting to like avoid it. Oh, this isn't going to work or whatever it might be. No, if anything, I give even more presence and more connection to it and work on it even harder in again, more of that embodied positive way than going down that negative spiral. So when it comes to my business or whatever it might be, and it could be a different kind of relationship or experience or something like that, depending on the person, even your commitment to your sport or something like that. But for me, like with my business, say I have some sort of launch or event and the numbers aren't quite what I had hoped before, like that could totally like break me and put me in this total spin and all these negative stories and not good enough and my energy just plummeting, all these things. Instead, showing up the way I would show up in my marriage, leaning in even more, holding that standard throughout those tough times, keeping that vibrational match up there and exploring things, getting curious, moving through those things to come out the other end, eventually have those manifestations come to life. But it really is about like holding that line and holding that standard and getting curious when things don't get hard, when they don't work out the way we anticipated. Because like life is so many ups and downs, and like what is time anyway? It's this crazy thing, and we can bend time and all of this. So it's just really, again, having that trust in the process and holding yourself to that standard throughout whatever gets thrown at you, because they're challenges. They're there for a reason, and it's to help you level up, not to break you back down.
Yeah. And I want to just really bring awareness here as well. Like when we talk about with like manifestation of like being in the energy as if the thing's already happened or feeling the way you already desired, like the way you desire to feel, feeling it now. I just want to bring awareness here because I've noticed there can be a lot of bypassing here of like, I'm just going to like be happy. I'm just going to force the positivity. I'm just going to feel only this and I'm going to force it. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to control it. And it's not really embodied. It's not an embodied feeling of this. It's not embodying the vibration. And there's actually an avoidance here. It's not about only feeling happy or only feeling joy or only feeling pleasure. It's actually allowing yourself to feel all of it, but not getting kind of like swept up in the story. So if I start to feel maybe sadness because I'm not where I want to be or the manifestation didn't happen when I wanted it to happen, I let myself feel sad. I let myself feel disappointed and I lean into that and I embody it and I be with it. And that's actually what allows it to move through. When I try to bypass and I'm just burying the disappointment, I'm burying the sadness, it's actually still there because I haven't let that energy move. So it gets buried and it festers, and it gets stronger and bigger and actually it creates a block. Rather than if I'm like, oh, I'm actually feeling really disappointed. I'm feeling really scared because it's like the date of my manifestation coming to life is meant to be tomorrow, and it doesn't feel like it's actually going to happen, and I might start to feel scared, or yeah, sometimes I even feel disappointed before it's even actually at the end date. So that's actually a pattern of mine of anticipating the failure as like cushioning the blow. So I
Mm-hmm.
just let myself feel what comes up and I lean into it and I embrace it and I move through it, and then it dissolves, it dissipates, and then I can actually start to feel into my natural state of ease and love and connection and feel into the excitement and what do I love about this journey? What do I love? Like what am I learning? What am I excited about? And I can actually go into the true deeply embodied vibration of like how it is that I desire to feel. But what's really cool now, like what a shift I've noticed for me is that I don't have to force myself to feel the way I desire to feel. It actually just happens. Like it's just more effortless. It just flows through me because I'm no longer suppressing, pushing away, avoiding what's coming up. I'm just like, oh, I'm really angry right now. I'm really frustrated that this isn't going the way I want as fast as I want it to go. And I'm really frustrated. And I shake and I move and I dance and I roar and I like punch pillows, or I feel the sadness that I'm not there. I feel disappointed, or I notice the stories that are coming up and I hold myself with tenderness, with compassion. And then all of a sudden I start feeling the like waves of I'm so in love with life. I'm so
Mhm.
excited. Like I just am enjoying the creation and the journey and the process. Whereas before, I freaking hated the journey. I was like, just get me to the destination. I just want my thing now. I want my shiny object. I want it now. I don't want to wait. And that like stubborn teenager, like almost like a bit of entitled, like I want my thing, like I deserve it now, like give it to me now. And I just get so cranky. Whereas now it's like, even when that part shows up, I just love her and I welcome her in and I be with that. And then I just feel these waves of like, I just feel so in love with life and nothing has to change for me to be in love with life. I'm just in love. And so then I don't even necessarily need anything to happen for me to feel good. It actually becomes a bonus when the things happen.
Yeah. I love that angsty teenager coming up, and that's something I can totally relate to. And it's like almost that sense of entitlement and like poutiness, and I want my thing and I want it now, and I don't care. Like, this needs to happen. Why isn't it happening? And throughout this whole embodiment process, like these pieces of us still show up. It's not that they're not there, it's just that we have these tools to work with them more. And I think previous to like being familiar with this work and having these tools, like we would stuff it down, like you said, and it's like bottling it up. We're avoiding it. We don't want to do that. Like, let's just feel the happy feelings. And it's like, we're not going to die from feeling shitty. Like our shame, our guilt, our fear, our sadness, all these feelings are not going to kill us. Like we can face them. And it's going to be uncomfortable, but we can do uncomfortable things. We can do hard things, right?
Yeah.
And so giving yourself the space to feel it and not be stuffing it down and bottling it up when it inevitably explodes and backfires and like becomes this whole other thing because it's going to come out anyway in one way or another. So like let's just not do that. That's not the way we want to do things.
Mm.
Notice them when they come up, give them space, feel them, tend to those parts, stomp your feet with that teenager, and then reassure her and show her everything that she does have. And then you guys can laugh and dance and be grateful for life and just trust that these things will come when they come, and you can be totally happy where you are right now without needing that thing and needing it now, right?
Yeah, and that's the pathway to freedom and liberation when you actually allow yourself to feel all the things rather than like, no, don't look at that, be happy, be happy, be happy, don't look at that, don't look at that, be happy, be happy. And then it's like, don't look. Ah, I looked. And then it like all consumes you and you're like, no. And then you go down the spiral and you're like, oh my God, now I'm going to manifest bad things because I feel shitty. Like, why is this happening? Oh my gosh, like, and I just like think positive, think positive, think positive. And it actually, I remember being in that and like that positive thinking, doing the affirmations, doing the meditation. I'm like, I just don't feel the way that they're telling me I should feel. Like, feel how you want to feel now. And it's like, but I don't feel that way. Like, that's not true for me. And I don't know how to tap into that. Not only because it's like actually just not true for me in the moment, but also like I didn't have the capacity to be in pleasure and joy and receiving and like all of those energies were really overwhelming for my nervous system at the time, and I didn't know how to tap into them. I hadn't found those access points for me yet. And for me, actually, the access points to really tapping into those frequencies was feeling what is here right now in the present. So, feeling my sadness, feeling my anger, my rage, feeling the depths of grief. That was actually the access point. Like, those were portals for me. Like, as I leaned more and more into that, it opened up pleasure, joy, abundance, all of these other frequencies were now more available to me because I was opening myself to feeling again because I was numb for so long.
Because when we are stuffing down all these negative feelings and avoiding all of these hard things, we're stuffing down all of our feelings. and we're not able to access it because we're stomping it all down, and it's all related to one another. And one thing that I will add is with like feeling these hard things, how it's not going to be the end of the world. I understand I'm someone who's dealt with depression and anxiety, and there are certain points where it can be all consuming. And I think for me, where that like difference was and not allowing it to just go into the depths of despair that would have such a great effect and impact on my life and my relationships, is learning that I'm not my emotions. I can feel my emotions, I can be with them, but I'm not them. Similarly, with our thoughts, we can think some like fucked up shit, but like we are not those things. And so being able to remove ourselves a little bit and not have that personal attachment to all of things allows that flow to really begin to take place. And of course, there's like tools and ways of doing it, but it's really important to kind of have that unattachment from those things. Know you're someone who can have these experiences, who can feel these things, to think these things, but you can also choose to think different things. You can choose to allow this emotion to move through you, move it through your body, alchemize it. And then those good feelings, like you said, just begin to naturally come when you allow for that flow to move through and not just get consumed in the downward spirals.
Yeah, that's another really beautiful practice that I just want to take a moment to acknowledge. And that was just like becoming, or even just acknowledging, really acknowledging that you are the experiencer, and then starting to witness, like coming into that observer, that witness. And so it's like still allowing yourself to feel. It's not like we're stepping out of our experience and not feeling. It's just becoming the witness and acknowledging I am the one experiencing this emotion. It's not actually bigger than me. So that's a really beautiful practice. And then the other one that Jannine shared at the beginning was like starting your day, like when you're in the shower, really feeling into who do I want to be today? How do I want to show up? Like, what are the behaviors or things, like the person that, say, I have this manifestation, who is it that I need to be or become in order to receive this, and how can I start acting in alignment with that now, and starting to do those smaller things like nourishing your body, the affirmations and the different things that you can do, like putting on even like the outfit and really embodying who it is you desire to be. So these are some really powerful practices that you can start with. I'm curious, Janine, if you want to just speak a little bit more for someone that's like maybe hearing about Sxx Magick for the first time, like what is that? So just sharing a little bit of light of what is that and what could that potentially look like. So maybe even just like one or two practices to kind of explain what that is. And if you want to share a little bit more about what we're going to be exploring in your workshop inside the Embodied Woman experience.
Sure. So I always like to start out by saying kind of that shift into Sxx Magick from the other manifestation processes is using your sexual energy, your life force energy, your creation energy, and bringing that into the manifestation process. Because when we really take things down and look at it, our sexual energy is what we create life with. It's how we connect with others and how we create. And that goes for so much more than just creating other humans and expanding our families. It's how we create all different things. And it's the most potent energy there really is out there to be able to do that. It's so incredible and powerful and divine. And so when we take this energy and we combine it with that embodiment. And so for me, with these practices, is we bring in a 5 sense reality of having our manifestation. So how do you feel? What do you see? What do you smell, taste, and hear? And so bringing yourself fully into this moment of having these things. And when all your 5 senses are online, your whole brain is firing. Your body is fully open. And so you are open and ready to receive, feeling the thing, and then you're combining this potent sexual energy as this like beacon into the universe, calling it in, and then bringing it back down, cementing it into the 3D world. There's just this added potency to it compared to other manifestation processes. And with that five senses reality is how you really learn to be able to feel into it, like you had touched on, like with the different affirmations and things, you might not necessarily feel like doing it. So bring that personal aspect into it. Feel as if you're the person that has it and really open up your world to exactly what that time and space looks like. And that's how you get all of those senses, that feeling online. And so the few kind of practices you can do with it is like I touched on. I have two main ones I work with, the like quickie, like 5-minute version and the longer ritual. So for the quicker one, what anyone can do is kind of give a little bit of Kegel pumps, like get that sexual energy pumping and flowing. And then you begin to move it through your body. So using the chakras or the microcosmic orbit, you begin to move it through your body. And then you bring in that five sense reality of your manifestation. So that's where you're really combining that energy moving through with that embodiment piece of it. And for me, I like to particularly cycle energy, like from my yoni, from my womb space, my creation space, that emotional flow, and my heart, really coming from my heart for what I'm wanting to call in, how I'm wanting to hold myself, communicate with others, make decisions from that heart space, and really cycling it there with that embodiment of the senses. And I feel like that is a great way for me and for anyone to start their day as the person who has what they want to call in. And so, say you do this in the shower, you get ready. When you go to make your breakfast choices, you're going to opt for something that supports you. Like for me, it's making sure I have enough protein so I have the energy and focus throughout the day and not just avoiding breakfast altogether. And then it goes into like that next option that comes up. Maybe you have a little space before a meeting. Are you going to scroll, or does the person who have what you want, they're going to take a few minutes to actually bring intention into what that next thing is, rather than just going from one thing to the next? And so all those little micro decisions from that state of embodiment really support you throughout the day. Then moving into that bigger ritual, which I'm someone who has a lot of fun is syncing things with the moon. This can be that great like full moon manifestation process if you really want to go for it, or it can be at any time. And it's really just lengthening that process that I touched on. It's taking time to awaken the pleasure in your body, starting from the outside edges, working in. Start with your hair, your neck, your thighs. Really bring that turn on, build it throughout your body. Then again, bring in that five senses reality and slowly move that sexual energy through your chakras. Really taking your time, building that sexual energy more and more, playing, feeling into that pleasure while holding that vision of having what you desire. And I will say, having guided audio makes all the difference. Like
Totally.
even as someone who like does this on the regular, I still prefer having a guided audio like I offer, because you can go into the receiving and not the like thinking what step is next. So if this sounds complicated for those listening, don't worry. Not expected to just like move through this on your own. And so you move through building this pleasure, holding the vision, bringing the energy all the way up your chakras and shooting it out into the universe. Like I said earlier, that beacon of light. Ideally, you're doing this at your peak pleasure, whether that is orgasm or whatever that is in your session. Because again, it's about the journey, not about the end goal. Then you rain this energy, this manifestation slowly back down through your body. And as I said earlier, again, you're really pulling it down into the 3D world, allowing this embodied version of you to fully land here, sinking it deep into your bones, your cells, your blood, becoming that version of you. Taking time to sit in it. There's no rush in this process. Allowing yourself to just be, to become. And so that's like the longer ritual version. That is
Mm.
very juicy, very potent to play
I
with as
can
well.
I can so feel like the difference in that in right compared to just doing like a repetitive affirmation.
Totally.
Or like a meditation where we're listening to a guided meditation and we're just kind of listening to it. We might feel a little bit in the body, but like this practice, and I've done this practice many times myself as well. And it just like even just hearing you or listening to you explain it, I'm like, oh, this just feels so luscious and like embodied and deep, where I can actually feel that creation taking place. Like I feel like so much of my body, so much of my senses coming online. So it's like, yeah, there is a part where we're doing. There's a part where we're more like in the feeling. There's flow, there's dance, there's receiving. So you can see how like the masculine and the feminine, they dance together with the universe. And it's really this co-creative journey. And when we work with Sxx Magick and pleasure, we actually really do get to enjoy that process rather than just like do force, like kind of like grinding and like just, like just kind of working our butts off and burning ourselves out trying to force something to happen. This gets to be really luscious and nourishing and enjoyable and pleasurable, and we get to play. We get to play with the universe. I really love that word, and working with it more and more, just like that play. I'm so excited for you to guide everyone inside the Embodied Woman experience as well. That's going to be early next year because it's a 12-month container. So your first workshop is going to be later this year, where we do From Shadow to Light, which is actually feels like it's a prerequisite kind of thing. Like we start to do more
Totally.
of that deeper work, and I'm just kind of like, it's really like clicking, like, oh, we really like did this well. Like doing that prerequisite, that foundational piece, so that when we get to that sensuality, that self pleasure, and Sxx Magick, we've done the foundational work that really creates that clear path for manifestation to flow.
As I said earlier, with my journey through manifesting and all of those things, I think it was the prerequisite of doing the inner child healing, all of that deep shadow work. So when I really learned the more advanced Sxx Magick techniques, that's where things just clicked and started flooding in, because you've done that work leading up to it to come again from that place of deep inner knowing and embodiment and being able to melt away those resistances and tend to that inner child or inner teenager and all of those different things. Once you do that, things really do just fall into place. And these tools, like, they're so fun to play with too. Like, yes, they work and they're powerful and magical and they're fun and playful. You, like you said, you get to play with the universe. Like, it's such a great tool, and it's something that's so accessible to us as well. Like, it's not like we need all these things or to like create the vision board and get the supplies for it and this and that. Like, we can just do this at home in our bedroom, or like the smaller versions in our shower or in your bath, wherever it might be. Like, it's very accessible, it's very enjoyable, and it's very effective as
Mm.
well.
Yeah, and so just what's coming through for me now, like anyone that maybe struggles to access feelings of pleasure or leaning into sensuality, I know you, Jannine, have an amazing honey pot meditation that could be really supportive, and that's a free meditation. I'll pop the link below. I'm also going to pop Jannine's handles down below so you can follow her and soak up some more goodness, because I know you share so much amazing content and wisdom on your social media, as well as your amazing podcast. The more that we can immerse ourselves in this world and receive these teachings and these practices and start building up our toolbox as well, really doing this deeper work, yeah, I think it all supports the process of manifestation. Um, is there anything else, Jannine, that you want to add, that you want to share? Um, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for all of that. And the honeypot meditation is just such a great way of connecting with your body. And we are doing the workshop, digging deep into the Sxx Magick side of things next year. And for those that are just like really interested, really want a taste of that now, I do have the Unapologetic Practices collection, which has some of these audios available. So you can plug into it right now, begin to play with it, as well as some others. And I think I'd just like to add before we sign off that, like, this is all a part of your inner power. Like, this wisdom, this knowledge, this magic, this queen energy resides in all of us. It's not that you just don't have it or you're broken or this or that. It's within all of us. And it just needs the space to for you to be able to feel into it and to be able to embrace it and play around with it. And sometimes it takes time. It might happen faster for others, but it is within all of us. And so if you are curious or really enjoying this conversation, but have some sort of like disbelief or your own personal struggles, I just want to say, like, stay the course. Follow your curiosities and continue to play around with it. Take breaks if you need to, but it is within you.
Yeah.
Just trust yourself, trust the process.
Yeah. Staying power.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much. What another like amazing conversation. Definitely, if you resonate with this, Jannine and I have two other episodes on my podcast you can go and check out. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.